Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we're here today. Who are you pointing at, B?
Special guest.
Oh, you're pointing the wrong way. But hey, everybody, we're here today for our third annual Jam of the Year. There we go. Sweet 16 podcast featuring the one and only live from the ski hills of Colorado, Peter Anspach. Hi, Peter.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Thanks for being here. It's very exciting.
Great state of Colorado.
Sorry,
Great state.
I left out great.
Yeah, Jeff Goose also tuning in from the ski hills of Colorado. So
just down the road.
Not in his après uniform right now.
How's the how are the runs today, Peter?
It's great. It's kind of like a summer day out here. Honestly, there was a little bit mashed potatoes on the mountain, but they got a lot of snow recently, so there was plenty up there, and we're having fun.
Amazing. Love to hear it. Well, we're going to dive right in because we have so much to talk about today. Obviously, we've got the bracket, we've got other things, but let's get started.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So I think we just wanted to talk a little bit about this winter tour that just happened. We can't glaze over this. This was a really sick run of shows, and as you might know, Peter, we had a very special guest on a recent Day After Show episode. Cotter was able to join. I think Ryan bought all his drinks that day at the airport in exchange for about 5 minutes on the pod. So yeah, thanks again to Cotter. That was awesome.
What's Ryan buying me for this?
It was just
good luck.
Ryan didn't buy anybody. Let's be honest.
Listen. All right. Keep going.
So Cotter said a couple interesting things on that brief stint, and one was he mentioned an intention to be more creative with set lists on this run and perhaps moving forward. And so I was curious to hear your thoughts specifically about what being more creative looks like to you in that context, or just what are some of your specific criteria in terms of crafting a really good set list?
Yeah, I think for sure the set lists were intentionally, randomized or done differently, or at least thought about in a new way. Because I think coming off of bingo, that always makes you think about like, oh, well, this song in this slot is actually kind of cool. It's like we can open set 2 with Hot Love and then play a jam, like those kinds of things. So I think like it was a massive step for us to do bingo, and then we came out on this run and we were like, let's just try and mix it up. And the biggest thing that was different about this run was that we've never done this before, but like everybody, we all like sat down in the green room and like pretty much came up with the set list as a group. Which was pretty unique, and like so everyone was like bouncing around ideas, and it was awesome. Like we came up with some pretty creative things, and I thought the set lists were really fresh, so we had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I think we all agree that we thought the set list construction was really strong on that little tour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so follow-up question, because when we talked to Cotter said there was at least one instance, and we saw the printed set list, so we can kind of glean this, that you just threw the set list out entirely and just did something different. So how did that come to?
Yeah, I think that was just basically based on the fact that, okay, what are we feeling at set break? And like, let's act on it as opposed to let's just go out there and play what we had. And I think that was like really liberating, and it allowed like the set 1 to like kind of establish something that we could then follow up in set 2 with like another flavor. Or it's like if it went a certain way in set 1, we could be like, here's set 2 is maybe a little bit different, and like I don't know, it was liberating, I would say, and I think we'll keep doing that hopefully.
Has there been discussion at all about doing a show without a set list entirely?
There's, I definitely throw it out there. I'm like, let's just put a list together and and go do it. But maybe we're getting closer to that. I think we used to do that a long time ago. There was like a few shows in a row where we like just did that, and it was really fun. Forget how long ago that was, but we just had like a list of songs, and it was great. So we could get back to that in the future. I think it's just it was really cool to see that experience come the way, like, or play out the way it did. Like, I felt like that night 2 of Grand Rapids set 2 was really sick, and it was just we just came up with that on the spot, and then there was like night 1 where like we never talked about playing Mississippi or like that being at all involved, and we were deep in set 2, and Rick was like, "Hey, how do you guys feel about a Mississippi?" in the talkback mic, and we're like, "Yeah," and then he just started it like 2 seconds later, and then we're playing Mississippi. So that was kind of fun, and it keeps us on our toes, and I think like the improv was great because of that too.
Absolutely
Well,
agree.
so want to pick up on the half step, because I think while we're talking about jams a little bit, I do want to ask this question. I think in this run we saw a lot of shorter jams that found their way to absolute outer space really, really quickly. And this half step is one of those jams. I think it's about 15 minutes or so. Maybe it's like 16 or 17. But it gets there really, really quick. And you guys had a variety of kind of jamming styles over this tour, and a lot of jams and shows. And so I guess the question is, was there intention behind getting there quickly, or did it just kind of happen organically?
I think that's something that's happening organically, and it's also something we're noticing. Like, I think it started happening back in November. On that tour, we started like hitting some jams like extremely efficiently. And it was like, oh wow, like that's fun, that's cool. Goosemist kind of carried over. Like, I thought that Hunger Site was really great. We'll get to that.
Yep.
But I think it's just something that's just been happening, and I'm positive it's due to like just being able to hear each other better. Like the new stage plot was massive for us. Like, we were having trouble hearing each other, just because it was just like Rick's vocal mic was getting so much bleed, and that was just causing all kinds of problems. So without any drums behind him, we're in a much better place in terms of hearing each other. So I think that's helping us get into the improv and listen to each other a lot more efficiently.
Mm.
I'm smiling because Peter is already answering questions that we are prepared to ask that we haven't asked yet. So
You're anticipating. This is why you're a regular contributor, because you anticipate what's gonna happen already. You're already
he knows his stuff. Yeah,
I'm just getting lucky out here.
Okay, so while we're on the topic of jams here, before we kind of move on to discussing the Jam of the Year bracket, we're talking about this year's jams. I want to bring us back to last year's pod, Sweet 16 episode. And before we talked about the Sweet 16, we talked about the TED tapes. And quoting you said, when you listen to the TED tapes, the future is there. And that one stuck with me then. And then, kind of thinking about the things that have happened over these last 8 shows, there have been a variety of jamming styles, like I already said. Some of them really deep explorations of some styles that you've never really gone super deep on before. One of which we're going to talk about in this particular episode when we talk about the Westville Rockdale. But when you listen to those TED tapes, you think of something like Erikoff, and then that jamming style shows up in like the Toronto Hot Tea. It shows up in the Hunger Site. It shows up in both Madavons that you guys played on this last 8-show run. Can you talk about, like, I guess, what those TED tapes that meant to you? Like, it's the future, and like, what do you see it developing as now 1 year later?
Yeah, I think the TED tapes at the time, I was like, they all happened over like different periods of time, because like there were, the process of like adding Cotter to the band and the tryouts, the auditions were like not all super consecutive. So there was like a lot of these moments that had happened through like the auditions, and then it was just like, I think I really noticed it when I was going back through and we were doing the TED tapes, and it was like, okay, wow, like there's a lot of different styles on here. Like specifically the Manu thing, like, was a major breakthrough. Like at the time we were just jamming in the room, but then like listening back to it and like selecting it as a Ted Tapes track, it was like, oh wow, this is like a totally different style we've never done. And like now it's just, we have that, like we can get into that mode, and like we can get into like the mode that's like, sorry about this background noise.
all good.
So there's there's like also the mode of like at the end of Leo kind of thing, where it's just like Trevor and Cotter just like doing a groove, and like Rick and I making spacey sounds. Like that's a move we can kind of get into now. The Erikoth thing too is like really cool. But like I feel like we kind of like tapped into some evil vibes last year, but like there was definitely more evil vibes going on this February tour than ever before. And that was super fun to just like I said, like we can hear each other really well, and like the listening is just, it's a game changer. We're just able to tap into each other so well right now. And I think like those jams are, it's just like, it's just fun. It's like when you can hear what everyone's doing and react to what everyone's doing, it's just so fun. You're just like, you can't like not want to just like push the boundaries, and that's why making music and jamming is so fun. So great.
Yeah. And I think, your point about, kind of tapping into the Evil Goose consistently for the first time in a while on this tour, like the last run that I think we talked about remembering feeling this way about every show in a row was Winter 2022, where you guys were exploring all this new territory seemingly every night. And like every show was like, building upon the last one. And so it was really cool to see, that kind of happen again. Really every single show of this tour had something really cool happening. So yeah, that was amazing from the couch.
Well, thank you. We had a lot of fun on this run. So yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
Well, so yeah, listen, incredible run. If there was one thing that I might have been sad about, it's that this year didn't kick off with a cap run. And, those have just been so incredible the last couple of years. And so, we're going to talk about some cap jams here in just a couple minutes. And I just wanted to ask you, what is it about the cap, or what does the cap mean to you? Why are we, every time you play the cap, we just get an incredible, bunch of jams. I mean, I think we got 4 cap jams in the Sweet 16 that we're going to talk about today, 6 in the bracket, 5 in the bracket last year. So what's the secret to Goose at the cap?
I think what the cap symbolizes to me is comfort. So I think what you get with the cap is like, we're locked in, we're like comfortable with the room. We've like, like we feel it's like close to home. I don't know. And there was something like comforting about this past run we just did, where it almost felt like, oh yeah, like these are size rooms that maybe are smaller than like some of the bigger rooms we're playing these days. So it was kind of like a little bit more casual. And I think, I mean, if I know anything about like improvisation, it's always a lot easier when you're not like when you're not nervous or anxious about the crowd or anything. It's like kind of when you're in those comfortable zones, it's a lot easier to tap in. And I think like probably has to do with why the cap was, such a great place for us to play. And I also think, those shows this past like 2024 with Cotter, that the energy was crazy. Like, I don't know if I've ever experienced anything like that cap night 1. Like that was just insane.
Yes.
Like just to have like your first show in a band be like, my first show in the band, there was like 50 people there, like I just think it, and Jeff's was like in front of a video audience. So we had no idea when he was there, So there was like, I think just like the energy behind like playing your first show in front of like a massive audience, plus all these people streaming, with like tons of anticipation, like that was just like the craziest moment ever. So, I mean, how could you not have like some strong jam energy coming out of that? I think it's just like, it leads into it.
Amazing.
All right. So speaking of jam energy in particular moments, statistically speaking, 1/4 of all of the Jam of the Year jams. So this is now year 5 of the Jam of the Year bracket, which is wild. We've done 5 of these, this being the 5th.
Crazy.
Started in 2020. so much time has passed. It feels like just yesterday. But you take all of those
Debatable.
years and you add them up. Almost 25% of the jams that have appeared in this bracket have been played in the month of June.
And we'd like to thank our very good friend Adam, our stats guru and creator of the formula.
Yes. So friend of the pod, Adam, came up with these stats. He came up with all kinds of things that we could ask you. But the one thing that really stands out, it's like double any other month is the month of June. There are a bunch of June jams in this particular Sweet 16, so we'll talk about those. But why? Do you have any kind of idea why that might be?
My first idea is that we play mostly in June, but
so we crunched the numbers on that. Not to interrupt you, but like we crunched the numbers on that, and if you normalize that against other months, it still is statistically overwhelming. It's actually bigger if you normalize it against other months. Yeah, really.
No way.
Yep.
Oh man. Well, I mean, here I was thinking that like, it was like the April time was like the best, or like, it was like March or something. I don't know, but February, like the winter months have always been great. But that's so wild to hear. I think I have no idea why that is. But maybe it could be due to like we've established a little bit of like ourselves in the year, and like every year does feel like the start of a new chapter. So it's like sometimes you come out of the gates really hot and you have an amazing introduction, but like a lot of the time it's like that middle arc does feel like a good, like you've warmed up, but now you're hitting your creative stride, and you have like you're tapping into new things, you're still feeling excited. I don't know, it could be just June's a fun month and the sun's out, it's warm, it's good for jams. I don't know.
Right on.
Goose is a summer band, maybe. Who knows?
Goose is a summer band. Well, like I think we all want to say that Goose is like a winter band, like an early part of the year, the low number months, because that's what all our memories tell us. The Aprils have been so good, the Marches have been so good, February's have been so good over the years, but somehow the shows are excellent, but the home runs come in June, which is nuts.
Stats don't lie.
Yeah, or they play bigger shows in June, and it might be attendance bias. Who knows?
The ball flies further in the warmer air. Also, if you're talking about home runs, Ryan, that's a sports reference.
Thank you. I
also just a quick shout out to Adam again, because Neil's talking about we normalize the data. So we've got a whole we've got a data analytics team here. I mean, this.
We've come a long way.
We take these jams very seriously, Peter.
Yes.
So.
As we all know.
And I do appreciate that, guys. I mean, I think I'm gonna try and locate to a quieter place.
Okay.
Awesome.
Mid pod
relocation.
So just
give us a tour of the hill.
We're gonna go on a journey, and
amazing.
I hope that's cool. Has the pod ever gone mobile?
It has.
A couple of times. We've had a few guests call in from the road. I don't know if we've ever had anyone call in from the ski hill before. Will you be skiing while on the pod?
That would be a first.
Look at that. Gorgeous. Skiing while podding?
That would be a first.
I think that sounds dangerous.
Don't get
I might get too excited about the jams in fall,
I was going to say, what's the highest difficulty you think you could do while talking about the Jam of the Year bracket?
I could probably hit an intermediate blue.
Yeah. All right. There we go.
All right. I feel like this area is a little quiet over here.
Excellent.
I don't think it passes music. It's like I feel like it's like 60 degrees here. It's so warm.
It's amazing.
I'm 3.5 hours almost due south of Steamboat.
You've ever wondered where Jive Goose lives?
But the weather is similar. But I got to tell you, while Peter's relocating, I'll tell a little pickleball story.
Oh boy,
I would love that.
We made it 20 minutes in.
Here we are.
I was in Canyon City yesterday playing pickleball with some friends down there. 72 degrees. Just amazing. Yeah, amazing.
Wow. Yeah, well, if you've ever wondered where Jive Goose lives, if you find an old Stephen Hyden article, You can
Does it
figure
say?
that
I got
out.
it all figured out.
Oh, it does. The first
No
time
way.
that Hyden interviewed you, he had a little
Blew my
tidbit
cover.
from Shive Goose, and you got all the personal information, just short of the address. Anyway, without further ado, it's time to dive into what we've all been waiting for here, which is the Jam of the Year 2024 bracket. Thank you to everybody who has gotten involved over the past 3.5 weeks so far. It's been great. First 2 rounds. And of course, there are 16 jams remaining. And so we are going to break down all of them and hear Peter's thoughts. But before we get into these specific matchups, Peter.
Wait, before this, Ryan, I
Yes.
brought a 3-pack of openers for this event.
Yes.
So I'm
Oh
hoping.
my God.
I'm hoping we'll start with these because we
Thank
don't
you.
jam before
Yeah.
we do a 3-pack of openers.
Let's do it.
Oh man. That's amazing.
I love it.
Absolutely incredible.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you, Peter.
Where do we go from there? I don't even know.
I will open one.
Absolutely.
Well,
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
yes, cheers. Oh man. Well, on that note, Peter, you very graciously contributed to the seating of this year's bracket, submitted a list. When you were going back and compiling that, can you talk a little bit about how that list kind of came together for you and some jams that stuck out to you?
Sure. So yeah, it was cool to like go back and listen to everything. I was surprised. With some jams, I was like, oh, okay, like it felt like more like we were searching than like found something. And some jams, I was like, wow, we just found something right away. And even though it was short, I was like, that was incredible. And I thought that was just like a really amazing piece of improv. So I think I definitely shouted out the Cincinnati Pancakes because that was definitely one of those jams where it was short, but it was like, wow, I really feel like we locked into something. And similar like the Hunger Site from Goosemas, or like the Animal from like this past run. Like I just feel like we got into amazing vibe, and that to me was like it was a standout jam for me. So that's why I ranked it in my top 32. Even though a lot of people ranked it lower, but I thought that was great.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Cincy Cakes is in that vein of what you said about, you guys doing these shorter jams that cover a lot of ground in the, last little bit of the year. Like the Goosemas Rockdale is another one that's only 15 minutes. I think Neil and I really, really liked and ranked where a lot of people didn't. But that's one of the things, Neil, that's one of the things I think Neil was really highlighting on the day after shows throughout Winter Tour, which was like, you can't discount a jam because it's only 15 minutes anymore. Like there's ground being covered that used to take you guys 10 minutes to hit, which is really cool.
I was shocked when I saw the timestamp on the Mississippi half step because it like felt like these jams like feel like they're 25 minutes to play, but then I'm like, wait, why is it's only like 16 or 17 minutes? It's like weird. So some of the timestamps, I'm like, it's almost a little like shocking because we were like, I don't know, I felt like that jam was super long and I was just like, it had so many ideas.
Yeah.
When we were doing the day after show, I was actually counting them up because I think normally we've listened to so many of these shows, but when we do the day after show, like I know I make a list of like, okay, so these are like kind of the big jammers here. And like you pointed out, that half step or the Pancakes, I assumed they were much, much longer. When they finished, I was like, wow, like we really got somewhere here. And then it's just like, I mean, the Pancakes that I'm talking about was about 13 minutes long, which is incredibly shocking.
Oh, the Grand Rapids one?
The Grand Rapids Pancakes. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wait, that's insane, dude.
Yeah.
That's insane. That one had like this crazy jam. I mean, I really felt like something we hadn't done before at all. I mean,
yeah,
I think Rick was playing like this wild, like jazzy stuff. I was like, wow, this is nuts.
So we're thankful for getting involved by giving us your picks, but it's also a real pleasure to be able to kind of have some insight into where you rank these and how you rank them, and then talking about it on the episode with us today. I know from previous conversations, you've never struck me as someone who's very like self-critical, but when you're listening back to these jams, putting together your playlist or what have you, are there times when you're listening and maybe listening to yourself a little bit more and thinking, oh man, I wish I would have hit this effect right there, or maybe done a little something different? How do you critique yourself at all, or do you get ideas maybe from listening back?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think there was like a little bit of both when listening back to all these jams. I was really struck by like in some of these jams, I love like how Cotter will just like completely change the trajectory of the jam like once like a section finishes. I think that's just like one of the coolest things ever, and like it's just so inspiring for the rest of us. So there were so many jams where like I heard that happening and I was just like, it really brought out like the conversation with the band. I was just like, guys, like this is definitely a thing that we can do, but like then there's also like these other types of jams that we can do where they just like kind of build. So like I feel like as a band in this last tour, we like communicated a lot about the different types of improvisation we can get into, and just kind of getting better at each one. So that was kind of we kind of like opened the door. I think a lot of that was like I was listening back to all these jams and I was like, well, yeah, like there's a lot of different modes we have, but there's also a lot of stuff that we don't really do that often that we can get better at. And I think yeah, it's really also it's inspiring to listen back. I think it's important. And there's definitely times where I'm like, ooh, like that didn't work so well. But you can't get it all back. I think like one moment that stands out to me in particular was like there's like the arrow from Spac. Like I at the time like I was like listening to like I had just got new in-ears, and in my ears like the synth I was playing was super loud, and like I was like, oh, this jam is sick, like I can hear everything very well. I was like, I love like where I'm going with. I love how this is developing. And then I'm like listening back, I was like, oh, it can't hear it at all. And then I talked to the other guys and they were like, oh yeah, we couldn't hear what you're doing. and I was like, oh fuck. So
now for the
like,
record, one of the things I love about that jam is your minimalist playing in there, because it's in the mix, but I love how that's very
it's so funny.
Rick and Cotter. Yeah, it's a unique jam there. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is like how you think the mix affects the perception of a jam. Like if you can really hear like all the pieces happening, are you more pulled into like certain ideas, or do you think certain things are better just because of the way it sounds? Like I was listening back to like the Madhavan from Fiddlers, like the bass is so loud in that jam, and I'm like, I wonder if this is why this jam really hits. It's like you could really hear what Trevor's playing, so it's like, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So speaking of Fiddler's Madhavan Jam of the Year, it's being in the venue. Being in the venue for that show, that's what stood out. That entire run was, and a lot throughout the year really was just Trevor sounded amazing. But there have been other times as well where I hear something on a stream, and then when the soundboards drop, I'll end up with a higher appreciation of a jam. And I don't of course ever go do an A/B comparison to a previous video stream after the boards drop, but I do wonder if sometimes the appreciation from the boards comes from a better mix than we had on the live stream.
The interesting thing about that is that like besides the cap and I think the Fox, like everything that's on Nugs is this just the stream mix, but with like maybe a little bit more crowd mixed in. So it's actually pretty similar to the stream. Like the boards are similar to the stream now because they're like essentially the same mix. It's the front house board mix. But the cap was like one that I mixed myself. So that was like that's the only outlier really.
It could also be like the beers and other things happening during the live stream.
Totally. Maybe the quality isn't as good while it's streaming as opposed to when we upload it later. I mean, I know for sure we upload it in like 96K 32 float, which is like the highest you could possibly upload audio. So
For all you
I
audio
think we're not,
files.
we're definitely not streaming it in that. So maybe you're
Right.
right. Like as an audio quality, it's not as good on the stream as it is on the boards technically.
So there's no post-production mixing happening on the boards, other than,
The
like you
boards
said,
only,
some crowd noise or.
yeah. I add in a touch of like audience mics when I think it needs it, and then I add in like a mastering chain. So it's a little bit, I guess that could make it a little different, but it's still the same mix as the stream, essentially.
Cool.
Yeah.
Amazing.
There's no like I used to do all the multi-track stuff, and that now our board mix sounds amazing. So don't really have to do that. Which saves a lot of time for me.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
for us, it's nice that now it's not a week until we get to listen to the show again.
Oh, it was never
Yeah,
a week.
exactly.
Service. Back
So,
in
like,
the
on the
days
topic
of
of the-
Well, we used to
10
have-
dark chocolate.
Yeah, dark chocolate. And then at one point we had Naveed even. Naveed was doing like, I had like set up a Logic template that was like multi-track recording the whole show. And Naveed had like a little like APC, like little like, MIDI thing with like little faders. And he was mixing the stream. And that was back in like 2022. That was like what we did for a while. It's pretty
That's
wild.
amazing.
Yeah,
I can't wait to
And
bring that up with
he
Naveed
was
next
writing
time I
the
see him.
automation for the boards. Yeah. Thanks, Naveed. He did some
Yeah.
great work. He did Radio
Shout
City.
out to Naveed.
Oh, that's
That's
a
incredible.
Naveed board.
Oh, I think that one was like it was reevaluated after, but he did the stream for sure.
Like you're going back to merch, kid.
It's a friend of the
No, it's
pod, Naveed.
not that he did it. He did a great job. He did an amazing job when he was doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I was so grateful. Yeah.
There we go. All
You
right.
wanna talk about
So
jams?
let's dive into the bracket here. I think we've got enough context here. I think everyone knows what's going on now. Let's go through our 8 matchups here.
All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So, I mean, heavy hitters this year. I think as we get into this, what's very interesting is we don't have straight chalk across the board. The voters were really, really active this year. A lot of people stumping for certain jams. Some of those didn't make it. Some of those did make it. Some that people weren't even really fighting for kind of made it in. So really interesting stuff. But right off the bat, we have a 1-4 matchup when we talk about things not being chalk. So we have the 628 Philly Tumble fan favorite versus the 9-1 Holmdel Montavon. And I mean, these are two incredible jams. I love that these are matched up against each other because of the fact that Montavon kind of does the multi-part jam thing, and then the Philly Tumble does this one thing incredibly well throughout. So I love these two being matched up. What are your thoughts, Peter, on these two jams?
I mean, I think they're both excellent. I definitely remember listening back to both of these and being like, oh, hell yeah. For this, so you said the PNC mod. Yeah, I wrote down like rock plus OB6 spaceship alteration.
Ooh.
I don't know what that means. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That one's super sick. And then the Philly Tumble. I think I wrote down that it was the peak of the year. Because
Wow.
I thought it was super strong. And I thought that like Rick's playing in Philly was just absolutely out of this world. I was like, when I listened back to that one, and there was like another jam from Philly. It was like maybe in Your Eyes or something.
In Your Eyes.
I was just like, damn, is this just Rick's best show? I think it might be. Like,
Ooh.
I was like, this is crazy, dude. Yeah, and his tone was fire. I mean, it was just like incredible playing.
I mean, at that show, I think that was the vibe that we had in the moment, that Rick kind of just took over and went, nuclear. It was,
I mean,
it was
that hunger
crazy.
site too.
And there was that hunger site as well. but the playing was so good. And Jive, I think you said before, you don't get there unless like everybody is kind of driving you to that peak. But Rick's playing, I think, is the thing that stands out most to me in this jam. A lot of people really, really love this jam. It's the one that I think is going to be divisive is not the right word. It sparks the most conversation because folks are like, what is it that you like about a jam? Is it just incredible playing? Is that what's going to get you there? And or is it something else? Is it creativity? Is it beeps and boops, as some people might say, like when we talk about the the Westfield Rockdale. So in a way, it sparks a lot of conversation. So this jam is really, really cool for that reason, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think like there's the bass solo, I think up top or something.
Yeah.
Which is really
Sick
fun.
bass.
And then it's just kind of like a beautiful, like vibey thing. Marimba piano. Like Rick does like that 2-octave stuff, 2-octave up. Like you have like Cotter doing like his circular patterns. Like that to me does feel like a theme of the year of just like I would, if that was the jam of the year, I'd be stoked about that because I think it's really like thematic of everything that happened.
There you go. A lot of people are going to be very excited you just said that.
Yeah, chat's is about to go insane.
Yeah,
Like,
there we go.
He said the thing.
Yeah. Now, Peter, was this your number one ranked jam on your playlist?
It was not, though.
Ooh. Don't get too excited, Philly Tumble fans. We'll get there. We'll get there. All right. Moving on to our second matchup here. We've got the lowest ranked jam in the bracket that made it. We have the Goosemas Hunger Site at a 6 seed, which had a nice upset last week over the Raleigh Pancakes. But this matchup is the Goosemas Hunger Site up against the Fox Arrow at a 2 seed.
Damn, dude. That's a tough matchup. They're so different. That's the hardest part about this whole thing is that like these jams are all so different from one another, which is incredible, but it's like, how do you choose? It's like, I guess it just depends what your flavor is. But it's hard for me to pick. I thought that Atlanta Arrow was like, that was one of my favorite jams of the year for sure. I think there's like that, like the spaceship kind of thing took off there, which I think we brought back in a few other spots later on in the year. But I feel like that one really had like, it was like the first time that happened and like Arrow was just like broken open. It was really, that was like pretty profound. But I also really love the Goosemas Hunger Site because it really like hangs out and finds it a beautiful space and like just I think to me that's a closer matchup than the seeding indicates personally.
But fully agree. Your point about Arrow really opening up. I'm curious, one of the things that we've talked about on this podcast a lot in past years is like, you get a lot of really long Arrow jams that don't necessarily go to the depths of improv that you get in other songs. And I'm curious if it felt different for you guys last year, because obviously there were way more Arrows, I think, on all of our lists than we have had in years past. And so did it feel different from the stage playing that song in 2024?
I think it was, certainly compared to past years, I think it adopted maybe more of like a different, like flavor because of, in the past it's kind of gone through a lot of different phases. Like it could be an amazing, just like straight ahead ripper where you just like bust out a really hot jam, like really hot solo. And then you go to the ending, so like it had those times. It's gone into like evil mode, which is incredible. I think we had an Arrow on this last tour that did something even completely different than that. Like I feel like it was like almost like more of a blissy jam. That like the tempo like kind of slowed down or something. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of exploring a song. And the biggest thing I can say about like if a jam is like working or not, it just comes down to listening. So like if we're not all tuned into each other, it's like it's going to be hard for anything really amazing to happen, I think. So it's I think maybe it's just Arrow is a jammer, and then we as we're listening to each other this year and like getting better at that, it's like naturally you start having some interesting like unique versions that you've never heard before.
Amazing. Well, I'm really happy that this Hunger Site made it. We have one other Goosemas jam that's in the Sweet 16 here, but this Hunger Site to me is very emblematic of that end of year. You talked about you switched up the stage plot and things started clicking differently in terms of listening. But you said this jam kind of impacted you in the moment, but I'm curious if you could expand on that a little bit more, because I think from the audience, it felt like Neil and I, at least, and Kev, who couldn't make it today, the three of us were together during this jam, and we kind of had this like, oh my God moment, because it felt like, you guys switched up the stage plot in the middle of a tour, and then you took this month-long break, and you came back from Goosemas, and it felt like a lot had changed. So I'm curious if you felt that way as well. Maybe it was the time off or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you always like when it's funny, like I still like at around that time sometimes I dream about like being on stage. So in my dreams I was still in my old spot. So it took some getting used to, and I think like coming back to that setup for Goosemas after the tour, it was like, okay, like this is where we are now. And that was cool. Like I was just like, I was feeling comfortable. I, like flipping my hands around, like doing like organ with my left instead of my right, took some getting used to. So yeah, I feel like I was more comfortable during those shows. Probably we were hearing each other really well. And it was like, yeah, that jam, like I forget the context of like when it came up in the set, but I think it was like time. It was like, all right, let's jam.
Yes.
You
You had pulled in the second set, you had pulled Hot Love, Give It Time, Mr. Action, and then Hunger Site.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, I mean, but it was cool that it kind of went a different direction than like your burning Hunger Site also. So yeah, so I think it's just a matter of like us listening to each other. That's my biggest point I can get across in this entire podcast. The listening is like so important. And when someone's like putting out an idea, or it's like the dynamic is going down and we're all responding to it and there's lots of space, it's like, beautiful jams can happen. Like, melodies can pop up and chord progressions just flow a lot easier. It's like, yeah, that was a special one, I think.
Amazing. Thank you.
Speaking of Hunger Site, Peter, you remember Hunger Site?
Hunger Site sibling, Philly Night 2.
That one is Philly Night 2. Awesome.
There's going to be a dog named Grand Rapids Night 3 soon. We'll figure it out. At
the
some
next
point.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys, like, what you thought, or maybe just to throw this in there, which show did you guys like the most on the winter run?
Oh,
I'm not there yet, man. Like, it's taken a while to digest these. When I think about runs, and I've said this, on the pod before and on Blue Sky, but it takes a while to let these sink in. And I think I said this when we're in the middle of 2022, winter 2022, where it's just like, when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to tell if there's, a landmark moment in improv, but it feels like it. And it feels like that 8-show run is an example of that. And they're so dense, each one of these shows. I mean, 6 of them, especially when I think of Grand Rapids and I think of Milwaukee. They were so incredibly dense with the jams. I'm not taking a shot at Toronto. I'm just saying, like those 6 shows in particular stand out. They're so full of jams. More than, I think, 2 out of each run had like 4 or more like 18+ minute jams in the show. I pulled that number out of nowhere, but I think it's pretty close to reality.
That one is not an Adam number.
That's not an Adam number. That is my brain just kind of talking the moment. So, like, to answer your question, I don't know. I think that the group consensus right now, the hive mind says that Grand Rapids Night 3 is the night that it all kind of coalesced and came together. But I don't know what you guys think.
I would say
definitely
Milwaukee Night 3 even.
Go ahead.
Sorry, B. Yeah.
No. I was just gonna say, for me, I'm definitely, I guess, with the crowd on that one. I think it's Grand Rapids Night 3 for me. And I mean, I would say, kind of going back to the setlist construction conversation earlier, there was we were talking a lot on the side during this tour about how strong we felt a lot of these set ones were. And I felt like Grand Rapids Night 3, for me personally, that's a pretty close to perfect set one. Some of that is personal, just songs that I like, but obviously the playing, having two really big jams in there as well. I thought that first set one is near perfect, and then of course set two doesn't stray far from perfection either. So for me, it's Grand Rapids Night 3 all the way.
I think it's funny, I did Toronto and Grand Rapids, but I think Milwaukee Night 3, looking back on the tour, I think that might be my favorite one of the run, just because you have that massive Everything Must Go in the first set. And I look at me not remembering for sure. The Mist opened Milwaukee Night 3, right?
Yep.
So you come out of the gate with the first ever Mist show opener, which again is like unpredictable, unpredictable songs. You're not ever expecting that to come in that slot. It jams. You get this huge Everything Must Go, which is one of my top jams of the tour. Immediately, that big modern to close the first set, and then you have that Driptych, in set 2 with that absolutely insane Hunger Sight. And like to me, that show I think is the best. But honestly, you could pick any of the ones from Milwaukee and Grand Rapids, and I wouldn't call you wrong for it. And shout out to everyone from Toronto, because the shows were awesome. They just were not, the same.
As awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so I just want to point out that I wasn't saying anything negative about the Toronto shows. It's just that the six that were played in Milwaukee and Grand Rapids were, in my opinion, landmark shows. This is going to be a run we're going to talk about for a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Well, the good news is we don't have to do a winter tour recap now.
This is it.
Yeah,
we were able to knock that out. So
yeah, good. Thanks, Peter.
Winter tour recap. Peter Anspach. Yeah.
Okay. All right, B, why don't you let's get back into the bracket here.
Yeah, let's do it. So we do have the second of 3 chalk 1v4 matchups here. This one is the Cap Drive against the Goosemas bass and drums and flamingos and 14 minutes. It's all about the 14-minute jam here. So yeah, I mean, we talked about the Cap run and the jamming there a little bit, but I think this Cap Drive was a top 5 jam for all of us. So we should probably start there, Peter.
Sure. I think, something cool about this drive, it was just kind of like I don't know, it felt like a statement from the first show. Obviously, it's like the first jam that we did live with Cotter. So it was kind of like, okay, like, let's stretch our legs, like, let's see what we can do. And there was so much energy and momentum, like, put into that jam just from us on stage, like all these weeks of practicing, like so much build up. And Cotter had to learn so many like minute things about each song. And, like, God bless him. Like, he's what a fucking gem, like he put in so much time and effort. I'm so grateful, And I think when we got to that jam of the drive, like I feel like it was just like, all right, let's just hang out. And now we're jamming, and like it's a little less pressure than having to remember all the small parts of a song that maybe the crowd knows better than you do, So, and he said that before. He's like, he was nervous because he's like, man, people have seen like 50 shows out there. They're probably gonna know if I mess up, even if I don't know I mess up. So I think getting to that jam was just like, it was really special. And I think I'm happy that has like stood the test of time of the year and is like a top jam, because I think it's really sick. That first part of the jam is one of my favorite things we did all year. So pretty stoked on that one.
Mm-hmm. Did you happen to listen to that jam before Milwaukee Night 1? Because that drive went it kind of hit a similar zone.
No,
we've been talking about. Just curious.
No, I think I listened. I mean, yeah. I listened back to the jams, but I only listened to like each one like one time. So, and made notes. But then, it's like you don't want to, you don't want to get too high on your own supply, kind
Right.
of mentality.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love that jam, and I do feel like we got into a really cool space that night one of Milwaukee. Also, like, I don't know, I can't, I haven't listened to both of them back to back, but I also felt like that was a great space too.
Yeah.
Um, that wasn't the Ghostbusters one, right? That was a different one.
No, Ghostbusters was Grand Rapids.
Oh, right. Okay, got it. That
That
was
was
great.
sick.
That was a great nod
Yeah.
to there was a pinball machine at Milwaukee. It was a Ghostbusters pinball machine in the green room, and Cotter managed to like get his name like all over the high score of this pinball machine. So little nod to him on the Ghostbusters
Nice.
tease, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah.
And curious your thoughts on the Flamingos plus 14-minute jam.
What a fucking ride, dude.
Literally.
So many ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I that was the craziest experience, potentially a live show I've ever experienced. I think like I just remember walking back on stage and like I had no composure. I was like everything in my body was just going like a million miles per hour. I was like trying to put my in-ears back in, and
Yeah.
like I literally had to like run around the stage because like I was just like I can't like untangle these in-ears. Like I need some help. But it was like Rick was he had way better recovery than I did, but I guess he didn't fall. So
I was gonna say, what was that
yeah,
moment
I
like
fell
for
off.
you when you fell off the Flamingo?
It was, it happened pretty fast. I didn't have time to think about it. But so there was a couple points where like my flamingo went like really far, like in this direction with my head facing down. So I was like, oh no, like I don't want to go down that way. But a big shout out to Pete Spadaro was underneath my flamingo the entire time. So
Okay.
that was
The
very
secret.
helpful to keep me up, because everyone was like filming and I was like, guys,
Like
hold me up.
hold.
Like, put your phone down. Like, save me. Like, it was a
Phone down,
really
eyes
funny
up,
time,
heart
man.
open. Carry the Flamingo.
Yeah. Yeah. And but thank Pete Spadaro kept that thing afloat for I think longer than it would have been otherwise. And Rick had
It was in
a guy underneath his too.
I,
well, yeah.
well,
Shout out
yeah.
to
Thankful
Spadaro.
that Pete was there. For those who don't know, Pete has the muscle to pull off this job. He could have done Peter, I think, by himself. So
Yeah.
that's when I was watching that, I was like, man, this can go so bad. And I was just like, I just want him to get back to the stage. Like, just get him there, please. And I mean, what a cool moment though. When we were talking about this leading up to Bingo at Goosemas, we were saying like we want the band to do something that will, make them step outside of their comfort zone. And that plus 14 was one of the things that we talked about was like, let's hope they do like another plus 15 or
Classic.
plus 10 or
Yeah.
whatever. And to have that come on the heels of riding on a flamingo, I don't know what can take you out of your comfort zone more than that. And it's just kind of funny that you're kind of talking about just gathering yourself. And then you do this 14 minutes of jamming that the fans have decided are good enough to be in the top 16 of the year. That's some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. That is pretty cool. I mean, it was a really cool thing. Like Trevor wrote that like little bass riff to do the drums and bass thing, like like a day before we did it. So like we had that riff and like we knew that was gonna be our battle music. But then like getting to jam on that after was really fun. And then it was more jamming. And I think like that is just like the best part about Bingo. It's like you'll just get those moments. And I think like the balls were really in general pretty favorable.
Yeah.
You guys
And
learned a
you
little
know,
bit from the original Bingo tour, and the pool was a little bit smaller.
yeah. We lowered the song count, which was good because it was only 2 shows. So we were like, we
Right.
can't do 70. We did 81 balls the first time. So yeah, we lowered the pool. And yeah, it worked out too because they built that bingo roller, which was like, I think it was like only 6 inches smaller than the largest bingo roller ever made, Guinness Book of World Records. So it was pretty close to breaking the world record for the largest bingo cage, which is insane. But Yeah, I don't know if it could have taken many more balls because it was pretty packed at the beginning. But
Yeah.
I so much props to like that team for like making that happen. Like that was absolutely crazy to see in person. Like we saw a
Mhm.
mock-up of it on the computer, but then when we showed up and like really saw it there, and it was just like it's massive. It had an air to it that was really special. Definitely brought the energy.
Sorry, so I think I sidetracked you with my comment there, but do you have anything to thoughts on the 14-minute jam itself?
Oh, okay. Um, I think like I remember being like really um I was really stoked on the clav section of this jam. Um,
Yeah, towards the
it was
end.
like, yeah, and then this is more of like a personal comment, but I just really was like, I was pretty excited about the clav tone happening here. I do think it was one of my favorite instances of clav tone, which is very variable for me.
Mm.
Um, so like it kind of changes depending on the venue because different power things like knobs move around, you know. But I really it was like dialed in. It sounded really good, and like that was a fun multi-part jam where I honestly felt like every part we were in command of what was happening, and it was really fun in that way. As opposed to like I feel like there's other multi-part jams where I feel like it's more like searching, trying to find something. That one I think things were just like clicking and we were moving quickly. It was really fun.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it probably gets
Um,
beat here though if we're calling it
yeah,
Yes.
I mean
by this drive.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. In my personal opinion, before we move to the next pairing, there are some jams you see live. I was there for this one. I was standing right next to Ryan, and sometimes you just never feel the same. Like you turn to your buddy and you're like, wow, like what the hell just happened?
That happened several
There's like
times.
video of us like cheering and jumping up. I mean, it's bananas. Watching the video of me watching this jam and letting that one sink in. So I think it's not even close. I was in
Yeah.
attendance for both, and it's funny that one starts the year and one ends the year. And yeah, the one that started the year is just absolute gas.
That
All
is
right.
pretty it's cool. It's like a cool matchup of that ending and beginning.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the jam of the year bracket is you can kind of have these weird juxtapositions of jams, and I love putting these two next to each other because I just think it's so cool. And you get to do that with like the hunger site also, coming in
Right.
the matchup before this with the arrow that came in September, but still.
Yeah.
All right, so next matchup, we're back to the cap again
Of course.
with the Redbird from 4-9, which I think we're all pretty big fans of here on the pod. And then we're going the Fox Half Step 2 seed. And this is really interesting. This is only the second time since 2021 that a cover has made the Sweet 16 of the Jam of the Year bracket. In 2022
Mm.
versions of Fish in the Sea made it because everybody's mind was blown
No,
by Fish in the Sea, and I think it kind of
2020.
found its way in. Did I say 2021?
I thought I said 22.
I think I said.
Oh, you said
2020.
two
I
versions.
tried to.
Disregard me. Yep,
Okay.
disregard.
In any case, second cover since 2021. Last one was the Eau Claire the Way It Is that made its way in. And so, just a question really quick before we dive in about this. Because of that, it's so rare that a cover goes this far that we find it in the Sweet 16. Was there intentionality at the Fox when you did this one where you're like, let's take this one really far, or did it just happen organically?
It was very organic. I I think like Half Step is such an amazing song. So it's like it really is a beautiful jam entry also, where it's just like a gorgeous progression and you just have sung this like really powerful lyrics and it's just like so special. And I actually feel like Redbird in a similar way, like when it enters the jam has so much emotion and energy coming from like what the song does, like directly preceding the jam. So like um I think like but funny enough, I feel like these jams are very different in terms of like this half step is like kind of gets dark. Um and it's like metal guitar, which is super sick. And the Redbird is
Yes.
more like blissy. Um and like almost like Mamu vibes towards the end. So Manu vibes. um, and yeah, it like great matchup, amazing music in both. But definitely no intention to like take this half step deep. I feel like there's usually not really any like or like any discussion to like take a jam deep before we do it. Um, it's pretty much just is natural. And it's probably good that it is that way because it's just when it happens, it's so much more special, even for us. And we're feeding off that energy too. So yeah, tough matchup though.
I mean, it is a tough one. There's a lot to like in both of these. We on the pod are huge fans of the two guitar goose, so naturally we want to get behind that half step. But I think what happens in this Redbird absolutely blows our minds, at least my mind. There's some interplay between Trevor and Cotter in that jam that it's remarkable that that's only Cotter's third show with the band. I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah,
That he could be playing on that level. I mean, that's the the thing that makes this really stand out. There's a moment where Cotter really has this incredible drum beat going that almost sounds kind of like an inhale and an exhale. It's so good, and then Trevor just starts playing chords on the bass, and it's just like,
Yeah.
holy smokes! Like, how did we get here?
Yeah,
Really, really good stuff.
that's a great observation. Like I love that you're listening to like it just takes like it's cool to hear when people appreciate like the bass and drums as like a package for a jam and can be like, this is a jam of the year just based upon that, as because it's like sometimes those things can go a little bit unnoticed when you have like flashy guitar or keyboards happening or like dual guitar, like all these other things. I think like that's a really cool thing to pick up on. I would probably vote for this Redbird if in the head to head, I'd say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually had this Redbird as my number 2 overall for the year.
Whoa.
I've always been, and I think we all here amongst us today had it at least in our top 7. But yeah, just speaking about Trevor and Cotter, because for me, what always stood out about this jam as well was the like Neil mentioned, just the full chords that Trevor's playing at the end. It's just very unique. It's not something that you hear often at all coming from Trevor.
Ever.
And so, and the other interesting thing too is when we talked about Trevor earlier in the context of the Fiddler's Motivan, there he was so pronounced in the mix, and it was evil and dark. And so again, back to Neil's kind of juxtapositions here, oftentimes I think when Trevor stands out, it tends to be in those situations where things do get a little bit darker or kind of far out there. And with this Redbird, it was such gorgeous playing at the end. And so, yeah, I just love this jam so much. And yeah, so it's such a beautiful song. And I love that we've been getting a lot of really strong Redbird jams. We're not going to talk about a lot of them today, but this year was littered with really great Redbird jams. So awesome.
Yeah.
I had 7 in my bracket. 7 out of 64. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. Which is more than I think everybody, but it was a big Redbird guy this year.
Yeah. For me, I distinctly remember being in the room for this and that last few minutes that we're talking about where Cotter and Trevor are doing that thing, and Rick is just kind of like very heavy, I think like reverb or delay, like very spacey effects, and just kind of doing that very upper octave playing that he was doing. And I just remember being like, I don't know what's happening. Like that Goose has never sounded like this before. And like that, I think the Cap Drive I had ranked higher and I really loved, but I think all the zones that you guys hit in that jam were just really amazing examples and kind of built upon examples of spaces that you had reached before, that heavier 2 guitar churn and then that just amazing peak at the end. And I think this Redbird really was like, it's not just going to be better Goose that like there's so much more that's about to happen. And this jam was just, blew me away because of that.
Is it a 3 seed here?
This is a 3 seed. Yes. I think, that's underseeded for all of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all had it higher than a 3 seed, I think. The 3 of us.
Well, speaking of a jam that does something that had never really happened before up until this point, we move into our third region here with a 1-4 matchup. We have the Westville Rockdale up against the Cap Pancakes. Now, Peter, we've been dying, I think, since set break on June 30th to kind of know, like, what happened? How did you feel? Like, what the hell? Like, this jam is ridiculous. But please take us through kind of your all immediate reactions walking off stage at the end of this Rockdale. What was going on?
I think like, and this jam is just nuts. It's like, I just remember that moment where like Rick and I like cheers on stage with our cacao.
Yeah.
And I just remember like that moment where, like we just stopped playing. Like we were kind of just doing Rockdale stuff at the beginning, and then we like kind of stopped playing and we're like, like listen to this like amazing rhythm section. And like it was just like a really incredible moment. I think that whole show was like really special just because it was like, look how far we've come in just a month of playing together. Like Cotter basically, went from playing these songs for a second time, then I was like fourth or fifth. He's feeling more comfortable. That was like a major moment for us. And then I think, we were all just like tuned into that energy, and weird things just started to happen. And then we were just following those paths, and it was just like out of nowhere, just can't really explain it. But it's like definitely one of the more special jams of the year, I would say. And like, yeah, I wrote some things. Bizarre, weird tension space, tempo picks up, ring modulator on the piano, which sounds like an Australian mouth harp. I don't know what those are
That's
called.
what
They have
that
names.
was.
Oh man, Ryan's gonna
I've wondered
overuse
for
that
so
forever
long.
now. Oh man,
I've wondered for so
Oh,
long
man.
what that sound was. Oh, ring mod piano. Damn, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Ring modulator on the piano. Who would have thought, man? And then yeah. Oh, and yeah, the landing back into the theme is fantastic. Yeah, it's like it really is. It's like that's a fun listen. I have fun listening to that.
Yeah, I gotta say before we talk about the next jam, you asked last year on the pod. You asked each of us. You said, what do you like about a jam? Like what puts a jam in that top category? And I kind of answered it in the moment, and then I thought about it a lot more after the fact. And I think my answer is when it just feels super creative. When I listen to what's happening, and I ask myself, how on earth did these musicians do this together without practicing this in advance? And that's what puts a jam at the top of the list for me. I don't know if it's like a multi-part jam or if it's got bliss elements or if it's got darkness. I don't think those things really matter to me. I think the thing that matters the most is when it feels like magic. And this one feels like magic. I don't know how you all synced up in that way. I could see how you got there pretty quick. The body language, the vibe on stage on the video was remarkable. And anybody who listens to this jam, I strongly recommend you go and watch the video and just see how you guys were feeling before you started, because I think it's evident. But the places this jam goes, to me, this was my number one pick of the year because it did so many things that you guys have never done before in a sustained way. You've approached these themes before. This is not new stuff for you guys, for sure. But to do it for as long as you did and as inventive as you did, I think is what gets this jam to where it is. And again, we talked about the Philly Tumble being a very, like divisive is the word I used before. It's not the right word, but it sparks conversation. This jam similarly sparks conversation because some folks are just like straight up like, I don't like that, because like, it's like, I want to feel happy, but like when I hear a jam, I don't want to feel scared. But I
Right.
like the jams that make you feel scared. Those ones,
Some of us are
I cut my
insane.
teeth on really, like old fish. And
It's definitely
that's the
it's
stuff.
a journey, man. And I
Yeah.
think this is the proper number one pick. Like I think, and even just with all the number one seeds, I think they're all respectable number one picks because they all do something super different from one another. So it's like you totally just pick based on like what you like most. But like I think this is like super unique, a landmark jam for the band. So felt great about it.
Amazing.
Hold
all
on, I
right.
have some friends here. 1 second.
Drive, tell us another pickleball story.
Yeah.
Man, I have
Special
so
guest,
many.
special guest Becky.
Hi,
Oh,
Becky.
hey.
I can't hear anything.
Oh yeah, I have my AirPods in, and it's
Well,
and it's Seth.
congratulations, the two of you, by the way.
Yes.
They said
Hi,
congratulations.
Seth.
Many congratulations.
Amazing.
Seth, do you want a
Well,
beer?
also, Peter has a 3-pack of openers. Well, there is another jam. There is another jam in this matchup. The Westville Rockdale should theoretically win this pretty handily, but the Cupcakes, which underseeded for all Jive Goose, you're shaking your head. Did you have this Pancakes ahead of the Rockdale?
Oh, so Peter and I both did actually. This is a part of the rankings where Peter and I were pretty much in lockstep. We both had we both had the Rockdale at number 6, and we both had the Cupcakes ranked higher than that. I actually had the Pancakes at number 3, and yeah, it's just it's I thought the Pancakes is another just really unique sounding jam. And it's I'll let you talk about it, Peter.
Sure. I mean, it has that night one energy again, like with the drive. So I'm pretty sure it was night one, but yeah, I think like this is. I mean, when I listened back to this, I was just like, wow, I feel like this is this is probably the coolest Pancakes I've heard. So I was like, it's very unique Pancakes, but also a very unique jam in terms of like a different style than everything else like in that top zone. So I was pretty taken aback with this one. Loved it. So this is a tough matchup. I mean, I think I've grown to love the Rockdale even a little bit more since, but I don't know. It's just it's a tough one. Tough. Good luck, everyone voting. I don't know how you choose.
All right. Next matchup.
B, you were muted.
Yeah, sorry about
muted.
that. There's all kinds of noise happening here, so I was trying to keep you guys from that. Okay, yeah. Next matchup. Let's do it. We are gonna have another 3 versus 2. The 3 seed here is the Greek Dripfield from September 27th, going against yet another Cap Jam, the 4-8 Into the Mist.
Cool. This is it's so funny. I love the 2-3 matchups. It's just because they're like close, in the numbers and everything. It's going to be really interesting to see the voting. But I think I go Dripfield here. I think this is definitely one of my favorite jams of the fall. And I guess I don't know if I'm as high on this Mist as everyone else is, particularly. But I think like at the time, like that moment of like that set 1 from night 2 of the Cap was really special, and like that whole Moon Cabin show was really fun. Like the pair of like this into the Arcadia was just like really, that was like a really special time. So like I see why that's like I can see why people love that, and like this jam is really cool. So they're both great.
Yeah. Well, this Mist, the one thing I like about this Mist actually is the crowd involvement in this one. Like I can't listen to this Mist without getting really excited myself, because there is a drop in there and then the whole crowd just goes, rah, which rarely shows up on the boards like that. But when it does, a few times it happened this year. I feel like St. Augustine it happened in as well. But in this particular show, that one just always amps me up. And I've listened to this one a lot. And it does a thing that I think this is a Cotter thing. I've been calling it like the frog in a pot of boiling water jam, which is like you don't know how you got there, but you went from, a very mellow space to just total frenzy. And it happens again and again. It happens in the hunger site that we talked about from Goosemas earlier. It happens in this one at the very beginning of the year. And it's a distinctly 2024 Goose thing that I think is really special and something that you guys have honed well. And obviously have picked up on in 2025. There are at least a few jams like that so far in this year. So really, really cool stuff in that mist. But I think I'm with you on that one. That Dripfield goes to incredible places and does things that, I mean, Dripfield has never done quite like that. This is the all-timer Dripfield.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't remember. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I had this Dripfield ranked really high, probably higher than anybody here at number 7. So yeah, this one was a no-brainer for me. Peter and I again were kind of in lockstep on the mist. We both felt it was a little bit overrated by the crowd and other podcasters, but still a great jam.
I would love to see your rankings, Drive. I don't know if I saw them.
Oh yeah, but Ryan can get you the Google Doc.
I'll send you
where you'll be able to see all of ours. Yeah, and I would love to talk to you more about Cap Rosewood someday. Which I loved, which I thought was better than the Mist from the Cap. So there you go. Different strokes for different folks.
Oh man,
I tell you, I don't know. Did it even make the bracket?
It did. It was an 11 seed.
Yeah,
but Drive
I
was
think
the only one out of us who ranked it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can't comment. I feel like I haven't listened back to it, but I definitely remember there was a great Rosewood from this last run, and like it would be great to just be jamming that one more. It's such a fun one.
Yeah, and just another beautiful song. So, which I think that does that. There can be a bias as how people vote. Not everybody listens to just the jam. A lot of people take the song into consideration, and whether that's fair or not, is up to the voter.
Right.
But I think a quick shout out to the guys over at WTED who are playing just the jams.
Yes.
And maybe you guys have the details on that, but at some point they're just going to play the jams, which maybe will allow people to kind of be a little bit less biased in terms of the song the jam came out of, for whatever that's worth.
Well, great point there, B. And it's a good time for everybody to remember that every day at noon Eastern and 8 p.m. Eastern, you can hear the bracket matchups over on WTED. And until, I don't remember if it's the Elite 8 or the Final 4, but they are playing just the jams from the songs. They've been edited, so you get just the part that you're theoretically voting on, and you can hear them in a really cool way. So thank you, WTED, for all of that. And if you go, you might be able to hear a fun bumper that Peter recorded. It's for the matchup.
It's a really good bumper.
Love the WTED guys. Shout out to them.
Yeah,
Thanks
they're
for
the
what
best.
they're doing,
Now, B, before we move on to the next matchup, I believe you had one more Mist-related question for Peter.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a no. Listen, this is not probably going to be new to Peter, but I guess the question is just around the infrequency of the Mist ending, and maybe within the larger framework of it feels like there are definitely songs that Goose will undoubtedly go back and finish, no matter how far out they take the jam. But the Mist ending seems to get bypassed, way too often for my personal taste. I've always said I think it's some of the best use of Rick's, vocal effects on that ending of Mist. I've always thought it's such a powerful ending, and so I'm always perplexed why the ending doesn't get played more.
Listen, Jive, I don't want to spoil it for you, but there is a show that we're going to play in Colorado soon, where we just play the ending of Mist 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, however many it takes to finish all the Mists we didn't finish in the past. And I hope you enjoy it.
Sounds amazing. Sounds amazing.
One set of just Mist finishes.
Just end for an hour.
Or just end every song
the only
with the Mist ending.
And you just put a footnote that says, number 1, finished. Put it after each song.
Yeah.
Just the name of
We
the
do our
song
homework.
becomes Finished Mist into Finished
No,
Mist into Finished Mist.
I do love the mist ending too, and I think like it was only because like we found like that cool space with Cotter like in the practice room that like launched into a different type of jam that we haven't done it because like that was just like we were playing the song and like all of a sudden that just kind of happened in the practice room. We were like, wow, this is like really fun and exciting. So let's keep doing this. So I feel like we've kind of we found that new thread, and it's like it definitely like departs from the Mist standard like jam, but we'll probably come back to it at some point. And, hopefully we can be a band for a long time and definitely do these things again.
Okay. So fair enough.
Hopefully it's in Colorado.
It's Cotter's fault for now. I'll take it up with him.
Well,
no.
on the topic of Colorado and things happening in Colorado, boy, do we have a matchup for you. So we have the 1-5 matchup here. We have the Fiddler's Motivon from 6-8. Colorado attendance bias, known to many. And then the 11-8 Cincinnati Thatch, which, again, this is like a really interesting juxtaposition. You have the very beginning of what was summer tour, and then you're smack dab in the middle of like the hot fall tour. And well, actually getting towards the end of. And so this Thatch is a 5 seed, so it got pulled in. It beat out a 4. And then you have that Fiddler's Motivon, which, is something. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on these jams, Peter?
Well, bravo to this Thatch. I mean, fucking A. I think it's a great jam. I remember like that was just like I was feeling really loose, and that I love the Cincinnati run. That was like one of my favorite runs. So like I'm glad that jam made it through, and like people are loving that one. This Motivon, I did have as my jam of the year. Or like my favorite jam. So yeah, I think what were my notes on this? Let me look back here. Yeah, Trevor leading the charge, so many dissonant, crazy sections. Oh, I love when Cotter kicks in the double time for like basically the battle section, I call it. And love that. And then there's an audible crowd response when we go back to E, like the main theme of Motivon, which I'm like, that just gets me every time. I'm like, that is so cool. And like it's amazing. The crowd has so much to do with the jams. Like it's they talk about they're like the extra member, where it's like they're adding their energy in. And it's like we're we're responding back and forth. It's just like a classic thing that improvisers have talked about. It's like the crowd is just as important as what's going on stage, and I think like the crowd was locked in at that moment, and it was like it was beautiful. So I love that jam. I think it does some like super unique stuff. Does not bore me at all from beginning to end. I just think it's like I think it's a great statement. So
Amazing.
yeah, I think it wins this matchup.
There we go.
Can you? So you guys are coming back to Fiddlers this year,
Yeah.
which I'm super excited about, and I just want to ask you real quick, as long as we're talking about Fiddlers, because there was a lot of, Fiddlers has gotten a bad rap. They brought in a whole new sound system, made a bunch of improvements. It's a really nice setup. The grounds of the venue, I thought it was very cool. I thought the sound was phenomenal. What did you guys think? I mean, obviously you're coming back, but what were your thoughts about Fiddlers?
I mean, I can give you an insight into this because the sound, like we were bringing in our own PA on that whole tour. So like, that is like totally Eric and like his PA techs dialing in that PA system. And
Shout out
like,
to Loomis.
it's amazing. It's amazing touring with the PA because like we tried 2 different ones out last year to like, and we like picked our PA. So yeah, it's just like, it's amazing to have a team that like will go do that effort and make all that happen. And I think always you'll get better sound on night 2 once things are like properly even more dialed. But yeah, definitely shout out to Loomis. I love that guy so much. He's so great, and he makes
So do
our
we all.
he makes us sound so good. And he's
Mhm.
just such a fun guy. Like, yeah, great dude. So, and you see him like when he's testing the PA at sound check, you'll see him on the back of the lawn. He like was running to like every single spot on the lawn to test the sound in every spot of the venue. Like you see him just running around the venue while we're sound checking. Like he's so on top of it. People have no idea like how much care and dedication he puts into his job. So like I'm so fuck yeah, Loomis,
Oh
We're
yeah.
told he makes a hell of an espresso.
Yes.
He does. He's got Cafe Loomis at front of house. Where he makes espresso.
Got it all. Well, moving into our final matchup of the bracket here, Peter, I know you got to go hit the slopes again in a few minutes, so we'll get through this. But our last 3-2 matchup here, we have the SPAC Drive at a 3 seed up against the Portland Wisteria at a 2 seed.
Cool. Right on. This Portland Mysteria is great. I think it's kind of like that. Doesn't it do that Saints Go Marching In thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought this
Saints
was my favorite
adjacent.
version of Saints Adjacent. This is my favorite version of that kind of progression type of jamming, I think, of the year. And I love this version of Wisteria. I'm glad there's Wisteria like in the bracket. It's such a great song. And like the jams on it, near and dear to my heart. Shout out to San Francisco Wisteria.
Shout out.
B's other dog.
He's just got a dozen at this point.
Every
just
time
gotta
there's a
bleed.
new all-timer jam, he gets another dog.
It's the ultimate tribute. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. What was
That's
what was
awesome.
it up against again?
The SPAC Drive.
Back Drive. Very sick jam. SPAC was cool. Like, there were some like really unique jams from SPAC, and we got to do that like the golf tournament. I feel like there was a lot of fan involvement at SPAC, and it just felt like a great atmosphere. A little less pressure the second time than the first time, so really getting to settle into that place was unbelievable. I thought that drive was a great jam.
Which one do you go
Great
here?
melody by probably go Wisteria, I think. Yeah.
There we
I think
go.
that's fair.
But it's funny,
The
like
one thing we could do-
some of these oh yeah, go ahead.
No. I finish your thought.
Some of these matchup I'm like I wish it was like some of the 1-4s I'm like, man, I feel like those 4s are better than I like those 4s some better than some of these 2s or 3s or even like a 6. Like some of the 6s I was like really stoked on. So it's like it's funny how it all lines up. But like what a great thing for the community to be like just talking about the music. Like thank you guys so much for doing this and like listening so intently to what we do. I mean, what an honor, really appreciate it.
Thank you for creating the music for us to do that with. We love it. We're just a bunch of gigantic nerds who like to analyze every note that your band plays. And guys, don't forget that Peter has performance bias for every single one of his opinions. So take
That's
them with a
true.
grain of salt.
It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Well, Peter, that brings us to the end of the bracket here. We just want to say our most heartfelt thank you so much for joining us for a third year here on the podcast. We look forward to doing it again next year for the 2025 bracket, which, of course, we talked about already off to a very, very promising start. I have one final question for you before we go that I really wanted to ask because Neil's here. That effect that you put on your piano, is it a phaser?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I needed to know. What do
Yeah,
you mean,
and there's-
yeah.
No. See, you can't do that. You can't
All
do
right.
that.
Well, there we
Can
go.
we talk about like one thing really quick though? Like
It has to go.
Yeah.
Great Blue is playing in like a couple days,
okay.
right?
Yeah, Great Blue's
So,
playing here in
folks should go see
Steamboat.
Great Blue. Yeah.
Yeah. Come out to Old
amazing.
Town Pub. There's only like 10 tickets left.
Ooh.
So get on it. But yeah. So, and then you guys know it's marimba, right? Not the vibraphone thing has just died
Yep.
off.
You got us.
Yeah,
on that one.
you
Yeah.
corrected me on that a couple of years ago, I think, and then I was
Yeah.
very.
Yeah.
But the ring mod thing, piano, that's never going to stop, Peter. You have no idea.
Okay.
Ryan's going to go insane with that. So thank you for planting that seed. Every podcast will feature a mention of the ring modulator.
Well, only if he uses it.
In any case.
Well, again,
What do you guys?
Peter,
I
thank you.
had
thank
one
you
more.
so
I had
much.
one more
Yes.
question. I had a question for
Yes.
you guys. What were
Yeah.
you? I mean, like I thought last year there was a bunch of 3-night runs, which was like more unique for us. I feel like there hadn't been as many 3-night runs, and now there's been a couple more this year. But like, in terms of a 3-night run, like what were your guys' favorite 3-night runs from last year? I'm just curious because I thought that's like a new concept. I feel like we're really diving into.
I think
Neil, do you want-
Cincy.
Yeah.
I think Cincy was probably at the top for me. And then I mean Fox was really strong.
And you guys did a
What-
3-night
Yeah.
run in Boston too, which was very exciting
In
for
Boston.
Neil.
Yeah, the 3-night run right here. I mean, I do more 3-night runs in Boston, please, because it took me about 7 minutes to get home from like night 2. I parked right outside the venue, like slept in my own bed. I mean, absolutely killer stuff. And that
Very
venue
exciting.
is fantastic. But
Actually,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Neil.
I was just going to talk about how Cincinnati, it just seemed to kind of build on itself, and then the 3-night runs that you did so far in this year seem to build on themselves to like the peak of the end of the run on the 3rd night. So yeah, more of those, please. They're working out.
Yeah, it's a really fun thing to do. I think because you really develop like I feel like there's a certain arc of a 3-night run that is like it lends itself to this type of music, So yeah, we had a lot of fun with those 3-night runs in February. Stoked
Yeah.
to get it back out. I don't know if there's any 3-night runs this summer, but
There's not, unfortunately.
Well,
yeah, that's fine. We'll get.
but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
a 2-night run in Colorado is like better than
A
most
3-night
3-night
run
runs
anywhere else.
everywhere
Yeah,
else.
exactly.
Oh, come on.
I mean, you've got there's a 3-night run in Mexico, which is going to be very exciting.
That is
looking
true.
forward to
That
that.
is very true. Yeah.
Peter, in your professional opinion, should Neil come to Mexico?
Oh, come on. It's not that I don't want to go. Mexico's far away. It's very
Yeah,
far away.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, all right.
should a Wisteria be ripcorded at 8 minutes?
No.
I'm just,
So
I'm
you're
just
saying-
joking.
Oh,
No,
well,
I'm just joking.
it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much again, Peter. Enjoy the rest of the skiing.
Neil, I will
enjoy the
definitely
great-
see you in Mexico.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay, fine. I'm going. We'll see you there, Peter.
Neil,
Here we go.
you're
It
coming to
worked.
Mexico.
It worked.
Get
Yeah,
Neil
that
to come
was-
to Colorado.
Yeah, like more 3-night runs in Boston.
Jive
and,
Goose,
like,
we
maybe-
got to get you to leave the state first.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about. That's what
Yeah.
I'm talking
Incredible.
about.
I'm thinking about a few things. I'm working it out.
Really, we got Kev is leaving the state in June. Kev will be in Phoenix and Vegas. So we got one
Yeah.
of the Colorado people out
Much
there. I
much
guess
love to
comes from
Kev.
Phoenix, but-
I know
Yes.
he's not here, and D. Those guys
Yeah.
are the best. So
The best.
thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you
thanks,
so
Peter.
much.
Being here.
And thank you
Yeah.
to
We
Becky
love you
for
and
sparing you for that hour and a half to do this podcast. Really appreciate you taking the time out to do it.
yes.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
thank you everybody so much for tuning in today. We really appreciate all of you. Don't forget to get involved in the rest of the bracket for our last few weeks here. It's going to be great. Can't wait to crown this year's Jam of the Year. Uncle Fred's Jive is leading the pack again for the bracket prediction
What?
challenge. He's heading for his three-peat, people.
Insane.
So watch out.
Insane.
But thanks everybody for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you again to Peter. And we'll see you guys very